Tony D and Little Joan with a screenwriter's rant on Joyride. Now, this is going to be a detailed screenwriter's rant because I think this movie is indicative of a lot of comedies that we see coming out of Hollywood and the inherent problem with them. Not to pick on this movie in particular, but it's, I think, a good illustration. Anyhow, smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books. Links in the description. Comedy horror in South Jersey. It's the Pineys. Books 1 through 11. Available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. Now, before I start, let me go over, for the people who always yell at me, they will probably be yelling at me in the comments on this one, how I do this. I'm a screenwriter, working screenwriter. I didn't write this movie, but I write other movies. No, you probably haven't heard of any of them. But I've been writing screenplays for a long time. So I can see things in movies and in trailers that maybe the average person can't see. So I analyze the trailer and then tell you whether or not I think the movie will be any good. And yes, sometimes the trailer is good and the movie is terrible. And sometimes the trailer is terrible and the movie is good. Sometimes you just can't tell. Okay? So no one's perfect. So shut up and either listen to me or go somewhere else. All right. So here's the problem I find with Joyride. The first problem is the title. The moment you say Joyride, I think, oh, it must be about a stolen car. Or about a group of friends who get in the car and they go off on a ride. Maybe they borrow the car or steal it. Doesn't really matter. Joyride can mean a couple of different things. I think one of the characters' name is Joy. I don't know. I checked on the IMDb and it didn't even have all the characters' names listed. So I can't really tell. But the premise of the movie has nothing to do with that. So that's the first moment I went, oh, that's kind of weird. Anyhow, it's about these two best friends. And this scene in the opening of the trailer takes place, I'm going to guess about, judging by the age of the characters and the age of the characters later, about 15 years prior to the main events of the movie. So this is a nice Chinese couple. They have a young daughter. And they're in the park and they encountered this other couple, white couple, who approached them. Now, these are the first lines in the comedy trailer. So the white couple, who seem very nice, they're not being aggressive. They're coming up like, oh, excuse me, you must be new here. Welcome to the neighborhood, kind of thing. I don't remember the exact words. Let me tell you, I can't play the trailer for you because every time I play a trailer in one of my analysis, I get flagged by YouTube. So if you're wondering why I don't just play the trailer and stop and start it, I used to do that all the time, but slowly YouTube is demonetizing or deleting all those videos that I did in the past. So I stopped doing that. And instead, I click through the video with no sound. Every once in a while, I'll play like one scene and hope I get away with it. I don't know, the algorithm hasn't caught up to those videos yet. But believe me, I've got about 2 dozen videos that I either had to demonetize or delete because YouTube doesn't like it when I play the videos. Maybe it's because I'm too critical of movies. I don't know. So I'm not going to play it for you, but rest assured, I have watched the trailer, okay? So this white couple comes up. Again, they seem very nice. They don't seem very aggressive. And they just say, hey, welcome to the neighborhood. And they want to ask them something. But immediately, the woman in the Chinese couple snaps at them and says, excuse me, we are from California. We're not from another country. So the assumption here is that this nice white couple, who seem nice as possible, are racist. That's the assumption in that, I guess you could call it a joke. I guess it's meant to be taken as a joke. I don't know who would find it funny, except people living in a different reality. But it continues. So they want to have their little girl play with their girl. Because when you're a parent and you have little kids, you kind of want to find a kid who's about the same age. Especially if it's a new kid in town, because then maybe they go to school together and they're in the same grade. They can sit at lunch and they can be friends. Right? That makes sense? Right? We're all on board with that. I don't have to explain the reasoning behind that, right? Anyhow, it turns out the white couple have a Chinese child. They've adopted one of the Chinese women, Chinese girls, because of the one China policy. The one child policy in China. Not one China. The one child policy in China. You're familiar with that, right? They've eliminated it now. But in the past, the Chinese said to their citizens, you can only have one child, because they were trying to control the population or some nonsense. And since you could only have one, most couples in China wanted a boy. So they would get rid of the girls. And one of the ways they got rid of the girls was to adopt them to anybody who would take them in foreign countries. Right? I mean, this is public information. I'm not saying anything that isn't known. I'm not making up a story here. That was the facts at the time. This couple and this time period lines up with that, because based on the characters' ages and based on the fact, I think the present day characters are in 2023. This should take place right around 2008, 2007, somewhere like that, when that policy was still in place. All right? You're following that, right? So they have their Chinese daughter and say, hey, can my daughter play with your daughter? The couple says yes, and they go off to play. They go into the playground, and see, here she is. And they go into, they're both very shy. They go into the playground, and right away they're confronted. Right away. Now, granted, it's a trailer, but they're not like on the swings already or on the slide or anything like that. They're running to get to the toys, and they intercepted by this kid who says something incredibly racist to them, like openly, like no hiding it, no subtlety about it at all, just like boom. I can't repeat what he said. I don't think so. I'm not sure. I'll give you a hint to what it was. Stephen Colbert had a similar bit when he was on the Colbert Show that he may have got a little heat for, but people have sort of forgotten about. Yeah, it was sort of like that. Sort of about saying a bunch of Chinese sounding gobbledygook and pretending like it meant something. But he directs it directly at them and says, those kinds of people can't touch the swings or something like that. I mean, it's right out of, this kid should be wearing a hood. It's that bad. The delivery is like, boom. Now, I'm supposed to believe this is 2007, 2008. I was around during that time. I don't know about you. During that time, I don't remember a particularly groundswell of hostility towards Asian people. In fact, I could, there's plenty of Asian people in South Jersey. I can think of maybe one incident you'd kind of, if you stretched the term a little bit, said, well, that's a little racist, maybe. That I encountered in my travels of 57 years or so. So it's very odd to me that in the space of 20 seconds, we've already got this sort of animosity between races here in this trailer. And understand, Joyride, the story is not about racism. It's supposed to be a comedy. It's supposed to be light. But wait, there's more. It eventually cuts to the characters when they're adults. They're young adults. And the girl on the left is the girl raised by Chinese parents, and the girl on the right is the girl raised by the white parents. So the girl on the right decides to go to China with her friend and two other friends to find her birth mother. Now that is a solid story arc. That's a good story arc. That's classic. It's very universal. But wait, we're 30 seconds in, and the white parents are on the right here in the scene. She makes the announcement, and they're incredibly supportive of her. Oh, honey, it's so great. You're going to China to find your birth mother. We're so supportive of you. This character here, raised by the Chinese parents, looks at her parents and goes, white people. That's pretty racist in my view. That's just a flat out racist statement against a group of other people. And you can test it. You could test it by basically substituting any other race in that mix. And you'll be like, ooh, whoa, you can't say that. So, in the space of about 30 seconds, for a comedy movie, we are hit by 3 racially charged comedy bits about the same group. Now, you might say, oh, you're too uptight. You're an old man, an old white man. You're very uptight about race. Oh, you're talking about race. I watch South Park all the time. You tell me that South Park doesn't touch on race? But the difference between South Park and a movie like this is South Park goes after everybody. They don't leave any stone unturned. They've gone after obscure groups of people and made jokes about them. But context matters. And because South Park goes after everybody, because South Park spreads the blame, let's say, on all people, not just one particular group, people have a great deal of respect for South Park. Because it's not about race on South Park. There's racial jokes in it. But they're not picking on a particular group of people all the time. This movie made 3 jokes at the same group of people in the space of about 30 seconds. And the thing about comedy is this. You need a shared experience to laugh. So, if I'm going to tell you a joke about, a gas station, most people have been to a gas station and they'll get it. However, I live in New Jersey where you have to pump your own gas. So if I were to make a joke about, we don't have to pump our own gas, where we don't pump our own gas, and I make a joke about that, I either have to explain that in New Jersey and Oregon, it's illegal to pump your own gas, or I have to do it at an out-of-state gas station where you can pump your own gas because more people will get the joke. If I don't do that, or if you've never been to a gas station, or you don't drive, the joke might go right past you. You might still get it, but it won't hit for you. It won't scan. You might go, oh, I know that. I know where you're coming from, brother. Those gas station handles are cold in the winter. Ooh! Like if it did a bit like that in the movie. The guy picks up the gas station nozzle. Oh my God, it's freezing cold. They get very cold. If they're metal. You may or may not get it. But the vast majority of people have been to a gas station. If I make a gas station joke, they'll get it. Because we have a shared experience at the gas station. We do not have a shared experience here in the first 30 seconds of this. Because the people who wrote this movie are living in a world in where white people apparently are relentlessly racist, even the nice ones. Even the nice ones that adopt a girl from a foreign country and raise her as their own, even they're kind of racist too. And that's not a good target for your jokes. You're punching down. Now, if you made one joke about, let's say, white people or the white parents, and then you made another joke about another group of people and another joke about another group of people, then you could see where we're at. You'd be in South Park, right? South Park, oh, they're going to go after everybody. It'll be great. But if you only go after one group of people, that just makes you racist. in my view. So, the rest of the movie has a lot of potential because you've got this character who's on a mission to find her birth mother, and that's an important thing that is a universal. It's a universal in storytelling. But it turns into like spring break in China. But, as I mentioned before, the Chinese created this situation in the first place. The Chinese government did. The Communist Chinese government, the Communist Party of China, created this situation for this to even exist. So are they going to make fun of the communist government here? Hollywood? Well, I would sincerely doubt it. Because in order to shoot this movie, I think they'd have to go to China. I think. Now, it's possible they went to another country that kind of looks like China, or they shot it in a place in America that they made look like China. That certainly would be cheaper, but we don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert enough to tell by like the trees in the background of every scene, or the buildings or whatever. I mean, maybe it's China. Maybe it's not. Maybe they just Hollywooded it up to make it look like China. Later in the trailer, there's a scene with a blonde American girl who's also in China. Turns out she's a drug dealer. So you see in the pattern here, you've got the white parents. They're only kind of racist. They're nice, but they're goofy and nutty and white people. But then you got the kid who's openly racist, and then the third white character, well, she's a drug dealer in China. Not an easy gig, by the way. My understanding, yeah, the triads, I mean, assuming they didn't brutally murder you, would be running you ragged, running drugs for them. I mean, do they not check the Americans? Is that why they set this up? Oh, a lot of Americans deal drugs in China. It's not Mexico. It's China. You got to get on a plane. But, so the joke in this scene is the drug smuggler spreads her drugs all over the train cabin because there's some cops coming and they're going to check the train. And so the four characters decide to eat or hide all the drugs in their bodies because they don't want to be thrown into a gulag. Now, that's kind of a funny bit. It kind of doesn't really scan in terms of realism, but for comedy it works fine if you're making the Chinese government the bad guys. Maybe they kind of are, but see, you could still do the same bit on an American flight or American train or a train in Mexico. And here's the big takeaway. In China, they are pretty racist. Yeah, if you don't know, they changed the Star Wars poster from the movies with John Boyega in them. Remember him? Finn? He's black. So in the posters for Star Wars where he was on, a big group of characters, I think he was holding a gun or something, they shrunk down his image to sink him in the background more. For Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, the first one, they put Chadwick Boseman in the mask and covered him up completely. Why? Because there's a lot of racism towards black people in China. In fact, you can find videos online showing Chinese security guards denying entry to black people in their malls. During the pandemic, there are a bunch of Nigerian exchange students in China, by the way. And during the pandemic, they kicked them out of their dorms, wouldn't let them back in. They were living under a bridge for days in the documentary I saw about it. Little mini documentary. Is that going to be in this movie? I'm not seeing it. But you bothered in the first 30 seconds of a comedy movie to take wide swipes at the American audience. You bunch of racists. What kind of message does that send? By the way, Seth Rogen's one of the producers on this. That doesn't make me want to say it. What kind of message do you send to the audience is in the first 30 seconds you blast with a wide brush white Americans as being racist and terrible people. What message do you send? Do you send, hey, come see our movie, it's going to be great, you're going to have a good time? No, I don't think you send that message. I think the message you're sending is, oh, this movie's not for you, a-holes, get lost. That's a terrible message for any movie. You don't want to alienate any member of your audience, and I don't think you want to be racist. I find the whole opening of this thing kind of racist, which is why I'm drilling down into it. The rest of the movie is wacky and goofy. Again, it's like spring break in China. Here, the characters lost their passport and they have to pretend to be Korean pop singers to get back on a plane without their passports. I'm pretty sure the Chinese government wouldn't let anybody do anything without their passport. I'm pretty sure you'd be caught in a bureaucratic nightmare for ages. But again, it's a comedy movie, so maybe I could suspend my disbelief if I liked the characters and if I didn't get blasted as a racist in the beginning of the trailer. So, what kind of comedy starts out like that? I can tell you that back in the 70s, when you had a comedian like Richard Pryor doing comedy about race, that was a different, it rang kind of true. Because you're talking about 10 years after the Civil Rights Movement. You're only 10 years after segregationists were protesting against the civil rights, wanted to keep segregation. So you had this fairly visible movement of racists in the country. They weren't anywhere close to the majority, but they existed, and they were high enough profile that everybody knew about it, that kind of tension still existed. This movie is made in 2023. The opening takes place probably in about 2008. Probably the best time for race relations. And not for nothing, if you're going to make a statement about race relations in America, about Asian people, without giving away the story, you look up the statistics yourself. There's another group of people in America that unfortunately has a high, let's say, percentage of incidents, which you can look up yourself. And if you're going to leave that out, you're essentially creating your own reality here. You're creating a reality like, oh yeah, these idiot white people. That's not very nice, I would say. It's not very nice to do that to the majority of your audience. It's the majority of the audience in America. Why are you alienating them and calling them a bunch of racists in the first 30 seconds of your trailer in a movie that would otherwise kind of be funny? I mean, I certainly would love to see a dunk on the CCP and call them a bunch of, I would love to see the characters run circles around them and see the ins and outs of living in China and have some of the locals do the same thing. But is this that kind of movie? I don't know. And I'm not gonna know because I don't want to see it. Because you've alienated me as an audience member. Because I'm standing in the background going, what the F, man? This isn't the reality I know. And if I'm not on board with this reality, well, the only people who will go see it and laugh are the people who live in that reality. And that's a very tiny group of people. I guess you could call them leftist or woke people, or just people who are kind of racist. So, yeah, I wouldn't see this movie. I wouldn't want to support it in any way. And that's a shame, because I think it had a lot of potential. It has a good story. A woman searching for her biological mother in China. Man, you got tons of ammo there. You got tons of ammo. The Simpsons did an episode where Selma adopts a Chinese daughter. And that's a fun episode. Part of the fun is they're making fun of the CCP and how ruthless and authoritarian they are. And in the end, they managed to do that without making Chinese people look bad. They make the CCP look bad, but they don't make Chinese people look bad. In fact, they make one of them look very good. Because at the end of the episode, the Simpsons are almost caught, and the Chinese official lets them go, essentially. Does this movie do that? I'm not seeing it. I mean, the first act would be them growing up, getting to the point where the main character wants to go look for her mother. Right? That would be her. So she wants to go look for her mother. That would be the beginning of the first act, all the way up to the end of the first act. She decides, I'm going to China to find my birth mother. Oh, we're so proud of you. Go. And then the rest of the friends go along. The second act is mostly them running around China, bad translations and drunken escapades and getting lost and having their luggage stolen and encountering the drug dealing blonde chick and nearly getting caught by the cops and having to smuggle coke. All kinds of crazy stuff. Third act, they find the mom. Having sex, I guess. Third act, they find the mom. Is that the mom? I can't tell. Asian women look so great to me. They are timeless in my view. And then at the end, they have to smuggle their way out of the country somehow. With this, I mean, this one doesn't really. I don't think it would work, but maybe I could suspend my disbelief if I was 100% behind the characters. But I'm kind of not. Yeah, there's Seth Rogen. I'm kind of not because of this harsh opening where you set up, you know, the audience as your enemy, or at least a good portion of it. So, are you determined that only a certain group of people will see this movie? I say probably wish granted, the way this trailer rolls out. You absolutely didn't need to go there in the opening of these credits. Maybe you could have done it with the parents. You could have made them overly nice. Some people are like that. They try too hard to be super understanding or inclusive or whatever you want to say. Maybe you could have made fun of a celebrity that adopted a Chinese kid just as another accessory at the time. Like some celebrities do. But, I mean, the rest of it, it's kind of harsh. Kind of like, jarring. If the movie was about racism, about how Asians face racism in America, maybe you could make that a comedy. Again, it would be limiting your audience. You seem to have gone out of your way to kind of smack your audience, a good portion of it, in the face. Say, you're not going to see this. Or dare us to see it. Well, you don't have to dare me. I won't go see it. Did you not want my money? Did you not want my money? I want to see comedies. I'm talking about this channel all the time. How we need more and more comedies. So you want to dare me not to see your movie? Okay. I'll take that dare. I'll keep my $14. Why would you do that? Why would you not make it inclusive? Why would you make it at the expense of a group of people? The Blues Brothers made a joke about racist guys, but they managed to do it in such a way that it wasn't at the expense of a group of people, or it was at a target. I'll say it was fans of the bad guys from Germany, and there's a very funny, famous scene with it, and they wreck their whole deal, and everybody in the audience cheered. Yeah, you can go after racist, but if you go after everybody and call them racist, or a lot of people, I should say, you're not going to make many allies in selling this movie. And then when it does bad at the box office, you're going to turn around and say, well, racism, we don't have to go see movies, you understand? Like, that's an option. I don't have to pay you money to see a movie. Like, I go to see a movie because they're good. I don't go to see a movie because I have to see it. I go because I want to laugh. It's a comedy. Bring me in to the comedy. I could have totally watched a movie about a woman going to China on a crazy trip. Forget about finding her mother. Just, we're going to go back and reconnect with our roots, and then they just have a crazy time. I love those movies. I love Road Trip. That's a good movie. There's a couple others like that. The Hangover. Stuff like that. Doesn't matter that they're Chinese women. As long as they're having a crazy time and they're funny, who cares? But you punch me in the face in the beginning of the trailer and say, come see it. No. No thanks. And that's it for me, Tony D, and Little Joan. Check us out on Odysee, Bitchute, and Rumble for our more base takes. If you can find a more base take than that, I say take it. We'll see you in the next one.